Hello everybody, my name is Patrick Dennis with Youreka, and today I'm going to just go through a simple example of how we can create a form template and effectively deploy that form template out to our mobile users. And this is going to be just a component of Youreka Labs, which for those of you who are just getting familiar with Youreka Labs, it's kind of like a how-to step-by-step guide to setting up Youreka, implementing Youreka, based on certain business requirements. So the example we'll show you today isn't going to fit perfectly with what you're necessarily looking for, but it will definitely show you what Youreka is capable of doing, so that as you start to build things out for yourself, you'll have some of this knowledge so that you can build out exactly what you're looking for. So with that said, let's just jump in really quick. For those of you who do not know who we are, just as a quick 30-second overview, we are a Salesforce-native forms, assessments, inspections, surveys application that is really really perfect for mobile workforces. So anytime you have people out in the field who are filling out forms, collecting information, whether that be anything from healthcare to oil and gas and everything in between, Youreka is really great at allowing you to easily build out forms, make them available to your mobile users, and you can fill out our forms both on or offline. And we guide users through their processes as they're filling out these forms, and really increase the performance of those field users and enhance the amount of data that we're receiving as an organization through these forms. So it's important to know that everything that I'm showing you today is done with click to configure. There's no code at all, and it all is living right inside the Salesforce platform. So building the forms, deploying the forms, and then filling them out on the mobile device is all using Salesforce technology. So with that said, let's get right into the demo. I'm going to do 5 things for you today. I'm going to show you how we can create a form template right inside of Salesforce, and I'm really going to take my time and do step by step, because the idea with Youreka Labs is that maybe you can be configuring right alongside this video to really help you understand how things work. So we'll build a form template together, then we're going to publish that form template, and when it's published, it's now going to be made available for our mobile users. So we'll assign a form to a user in the field. They'll fill out that form, and we'll do it on my phone, pretending like we're that person in the field. And then we'll submit that form, and then we'll review all the data back in Salesforce after the form has been completed. So let's jump over into Salesforce here, and we'll dig right in. The first thing that I want to do is we're going to show you this video assuming that you've already installed the Youreka managed package. If you have not, head over to the App Exchange and give us a quick install from there into your demo environment, into your developer environment, just so that you can kind of test this stuff out. But after you're in a spot where you've actually installed the application, we're going to want to go to the tab inside of Salesforce called Form Templates. And this is where we're really able to design all the different types of forms that we want our users to be able to fill out. So we're going to click into this Form Templates tab, and from here we can click on the little New button in the top. And what this is going to do, just like any other Salesforce record, we're creating a new form template record in this case, but our technology here is going to take you to a new page where you can configure this form template in our drag and drop editor. So here we're going to call this the store audit form template. And the idea is that maybe we have a bunch of forms users out in the field, maybe a bunch of field sales reps who are going to go out and they need to fill out a form while they're visiting some of their accounts. Maybe they visit retail locations to understand whether or not our company's products are properly sitting on the shelves, and if there's any competing products next to ours. Maybe we're doing a bit of a store audit in that way. So we'll do this store audit form template, and from here we can just use the Youreka's drag and drop editor to just drag elements onto the canvas and immediately start building stuff out. So this first one, this is a first section, and we'll call this basic account information. I can configure it to be 1 columns or 2 columns, and I can configure whether or not there's a page break after this section. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as is, and we'll go ahead and click Save. Next, we can see the system's really kind of guiding you along here. So you can see the next part of this process is for us to drag a question onto the editor. And so we'll do that right now. And maybe as the first part of my form, I just want some basic information about this particular account in Salesforce. So I'm actually just going to start with a question called account name. Now here is where we can select all the different types of questions that we might want to have this be configured as. So maybe I just want it as text, or maybe I want it as a radio button. And so we'll come back to many of these examples here in the demo. But for this one, we actually are going to be mapping data to a specific object in Salesforce, in this case, the account. So I'm going to go to this special question type right here called a field link. And what a field link is going to do is it immediately allows me to view all the objects in my environment that were configured and set up for Youreka to be able to map information to. If you're just getting started, you're only going to see these 5 right here: the account, the case, the contact, the lead, and the opportunity. If you have a different object that you're hoping to map information to, don't worry, you can set up that object. We support most of the standard objects and any custom object that you might have. But there's a bit of a setup process that you have to go through in order to make that happen. And so I'll put a link in the article here. Maybe we can tag it in the top corner of this video for you to be able to jump over and see how that works. It's really easy to set up, but ultimately you're going to want to have those objects showing up here. In this case, like I said, we're going to go off the account object. So I'm just going to click on account here. And then right after this, we can see all of the different fields on the account object that we might want to link to. So I'm just going to go ahead and click account name here, which is going to go to that standard field that we all know, just the standard object for account, and then the standard name field on that account object. Now we can configure if the color is going to be a little bit different than light blue, which is kind of the default of Youreka, and we can configure whether or not there's a tooltip. So there's some options here that you can set up that makes it really easy to kind of decide what it's going to look like. But when I'm done, I'm just going to click save here, and we can proceed on. Next, I'm just going to add several other questions here, and I'm going to have these all be related to the account as well. So I might have the website for the account, and we'll do the same thing here with a field link. And so we'll pick that account object, and then we'll pick the website, and we'll click save. The next one, we'll drag on a question here, and we'll actually have this be the shipping street address, and we'll field link that to the account object and the shipping street. And we'll see there's many other options here. This video is not the time for me to explain those. There are other resources on our website that show you how each of those work. The point of this is to just give you a simple glimpse into how this works to build out a quick form template. The next one I might want to add is the shipping city. So we're basically going to have all of the different address fields here on this form. We'll drag the next one on. We'll do shipping state or province. Field link that to the account as well. If I'm going too slow, you can definitely just go ahead and fast forward the video through some of this. But really, again, the point is to make sure that we're doing a step-by-step here so that you can really understand how this can work as you're building out your own forms. So we'll do the account here with the postal code, and we'll do one more with just the country. So we'll call this shipping country. Field link that to the account. Oops. And we're good to go. So this is my first section here. It's great. It's just loaded with basic account information. What's interesting about the field link feature, and again, we'll link out to some other resources that describe this, but when we're field linking these questions, what's interesting is that the form is actually going to map data to and from a specific account record. So the form will actually be pre-populated with all the fields on a particular account, and then the user, if we want them to, can be able to has the ability to update those values on their particular record. And then when they submit their form, those values will then be updated inside of Salesforce. So that's how that field link works. It's really helpful for updating information inside the system on any record you might be working off of. The next section we might want to add here is just maybe some basic competitive intelligence. So we'll call this section competitive intelligence. And we'll do a page break after this section to kind of show you what it looks like to have different pages. Next, we'll basically drag on a couple other questions here, but these questions aren't going to link to a particular object. These are going to be kind of standalone questions. And the reason why that's so significant, the reason why that's so powerful is because, think about it, you don't have to have a custom field for every single question you ask with Youreka. And that's significant because we don't want to have to be system administrators going in every single day, every week, every time someone needs a new type of form. We don't want to have to go through and create new fields, new fields, new fields. That's not an efficient process as we try to scale our forms operation here. So these questions, everything other than the field link, is actually not mapping to any field on any object in Salesforce that you have set up. They're going to be sitting inside the Youreka data model. So as this next point, let's say something like, are there competitors present? And we'll say that that's a yes or no. And when we say yes or no, obviously it kind of brings up these little button options, and we can select whether or not it's, we could change the text if we want to, and we could also pick different button icons if we want to as well. But for now, I'm going to keep it the same. So we'll say, are there competitors present? And then the next question we might say is approximately how many competitors are present. And here I'm also going to do a radio button. You could do a number field too, but I'm just going to keep it. I'm going to keep it simple. So for our first option, we'll say that there is 1 to 2. The next one we'll say that it's 3 to 4 competitors. Next one we'll say is 5 to 6 competitors. And next we'll say, greater than 6. And we could create button icons for each of these, but I'm going to keep them blank for now. And maybe we'll just say one more value here, and we'll just say other. For one reason or another, maybe it doesn't make any sense to do this, but the reason why I'm doing it for you now is so that you can see the second that we have a high amount of options in our pick list in a form, we can switch over to this verbose setting, which is a little bit neater, in my opinion, when you have a lot of buttons like this. So we'll want to do that here. The other thing is that we'll want to use our conditional display logic in this case. So in this case, we could always show this question, or we could change it to conditionally visible. And we'll only show this question when we say that there are competitors present. This is really cool because you can start to set up a lot of different ways that certain questions are going to show or hide based on answers to previous questions. So we'll save that here. And really quick, before we proceed on, I'm going to show you that we can actually preview this form as we go. So as we click preview, it's going to quickly save our work, and then we could jump in and actually see what the full form is going to look like. Either if we're filling it out on web, which you can see there is our conditional display logic, or we could see what it looks like on a phone as well, or a tablet. So kind of a helpful feature there to show you as you're building things out and testing your form, what things look like in preview mode. The next thing that we'll do really quick is I'll drag another question onto the canvas here, and that question is going to be, are our prices lower than average, or higher than average? And we'll create another radio button here. So we'll say lower than average, we'll say average, and we'll say higher than average. And this is just another way for us to kind of understand information about our competitors, right? And we'll also only want to show this when we say that that there are competitors present. Otherwise, it'll stay hidden for us. All right. And then the final thing that we'll do is we'll add one more section here, and this will go after the page break. And this will just say something like, close out store audit. And here what we can do is we can drag a question onto the editor here, and we'll say, please identify the store manager that you spoke with. and maybe this will just be free text, and then maybe we'll get the store man, or maybe we'll have the field user sign after they're done. So we'll say, please sign this store audit when you are finished. And for that, we'll pick the e-signature option here. We'll click save, and then we'll finally save all of our work here. So pretty simple form. There's not a lot going on here. It's pretty easy for our user to fill it out. Maybe as you're building out your forms, you might see dozens more questions, hundreds more questions even. But the point here is to just kind of show you a simple form as we kind of build it out. So at this point, I'm going to do one more thing, which is I want to set up some discoveries. Now, if you don't have this little checkbox on the right-hand side called Show Smart Features, you're going to want to check that right here. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to open up the Discoveries editor, which is accessible if we click Continue here in the top right-hand corner. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, briefly, what discoveries are, as this is kind of loading up, discoveries are a way for us to basically automatically understand certain responses to certain questions inside of our form. So what Youreka is capable of doing is saying, if the answer to are there competitors present, if the answer to that is yes, and if we see that there's a lot of competitors and we see that we're higher than average in terms of our pricing versus theirs, maybe we want to alert somebody, or maybe we want to create a follow-up task as a result of that happening. So that's what discoveries are capable of doing for us. They analyze all the answers in a form and then spit out a result as a part of that form being submitted. So I'm actually going to click Continue over here. We're going to build out a complex discovery rule here. And I'm going to just kind of close these instructions here. And the first thing I need to do is I need to create a discovery rule. So when we create a discovery rule, this is kind of like a grouping of questions that basically add up to this discovery type that we're hoping fires when the forms are submitted. So in this case, I'm going to analyze all three of these questions and look for some sort of opportunity. So here we'll say highly competitive situation. And so that's the discovery type that we're going to be using. Now I'm going to drag on, are there competitors present? And at this point, this kind of can look confusing the first time that you look at it, I think, but the second that you understand what's going on here, it can be really powerful. We can apply weights to the different question values that we have in the form. And these weights allow you to develop a score, and when that score threshold is met, that's when the discovery will ultimately fire. So here we could say, if the answer is yes, we're going to give it 1 point. If the answer is no, no points. And the idea here would be as soon as we get enough points, we're going to create this discovery in Salesforce that says that we have a really highly competitive situation here that needs to be addressed. So next, I'll drag on this other question, and we'll say, if there's 5 or 6, then we'll add a point there. Or if there's greater than 6, we'll add a point for that too. And then finally, we'll drag on the question about our prices. So we'll say, are our prices lower than average, average, or higher than average? If our prices are higher than average, I'm going to give us a point here as well. So as you can kind of see, we're adding points for the really critical outputs. So if someone's going through and they say that there's a lot of competitors, and we're higher than average, we're going to flag this. So that's what it looks like to actually drag the questions on. Next, we're going to go ahead and click on the Discovery Logic tab. So we'll kind of work our way through the tabs here until we're done. At this moment, we get to set up the criteria for when the discovery is actually going to fire. So if you remember, we had 3 questions. The maximum amount of points that can be attributed to this particular discovery rule would be 3. So we'll say that anytime that the point system is greater than 2, we'll have this discovery fire. And then here is where we can define the discovery type that's going to fire. So again, I might just say that this is a highly competitive situation. And we'll click Add, and that's going to basically set up a discovery type to be able to be used. And then finally, we're going to click on Target Location here. And this is very simply saying, anytime that a discovery is created of this type, where do we want to stick this? Do we want this to just be a standalone discovery record in Salesforce, or do we want to have it related to the account, for example? So here I can say, you know what, we were using this account lookup earlier. Let's copy that over to the discovery lookup. Again, there's more documentation that I can point you to on this particular item, but the point is these forms are related to the account, so I want the discoveries also to be related to the account too. At this point, I can click Save, and we'll go ahead and close the template editor. So now what we've done is we've created a form template, we've created some discoveries that go with that form template, and now at this point, I can click this little gear icon up in the right-hand corner, and I can select Publish. Now there's a lot of other settings here as well. Again, I'm not going to go into those. We have documentation on our knowledge base to explain each of those. So if you're curious about what you're seeing here, feel free to dig into our knowledge base, and we promise there's plenty of content there to help support your questions there. But for now, I'm just going to click Publish, and our page is going to quickly refresh here. And the first thing we'll see now is that the status of this form is officially published. And in fact, we even say that it's enabled on mobile, which means that our mobile users can start to use it. Now, let's go ahead and create an actual form for our users to fill out. So again, these form templates are kind of the skeleton, right? It's got all the questions that we're intending to ask, but every single form record, which is different than a form template, every form record is a single instance of the form being completed by a user, whether that be on a desktop or on a mobile device. So I'm just going to create a new form here, and we'll assign this form to an account, and we'll give it to a user to fill out while they're in the field. So the first thing I need to do is populate this lookup here. Now, we have a lot of different ways we can populate this automatically, but for the sake of today's demo, I wanted you to see what this looks like to manually populate it. So here, I'm just going to click on this account lookup, and we can see we have all these different accounts in the system that this form could be related to. So I'm going to click on Blake Grocery. That's the account that our user is going to go visit today. And I'm not going to complete the new form. I'm not intending to fill it out on my desktop device. I just need to save it for later, and then we'll assign this to our mobile user out in the field. So we'll click Save the new form. This has created a new form record in Salesforce, which we're now being brought to. And what we can see now is there's some additional information on the right-hand side, like tasks or Salesforce files. But the important thing that I would draw your attention to is the actual form itself, which is here on the left-hand side. What we'll see already is that all of this information is pre-populated with data from that specific account. So Blake Grocery in Minneapolis at 4605 Central Avenue, these fields are pre-populated because they were field links. And our mobile user will be able to update those if we want them to, or these can be read-only if that's more important. The rest of this information has not yet been filled out. It's entirely blank, and that's exactly what we want because we need to actually go out in the field and fill out this information. Now at this point, I have a user in the field who I want to actually fill out this form. So I can click on Change Owner. The owner of this form is going to be the one who sees it by default. So if I click Change Owner here, I can select my user in the field. In this case, we're going to assign this to Elijah Smith. And when I assign this to Elijah Smith, the ownership of this record has changed, and now Elijah is going to be able to see this on the Youreka mobile device. So we'll switch over here onto my phone. I'm logged in as Elijah, and at this point I can actually refresh my page here, and what this is going to do is it's going to show the form record that we just created in Salesforce for Blake Grocery, but it's now here on the mobile app for us to be able to see. So think about it. Elijah wakes up this morning, he's leaving the office, and he refreshes his Youreka app to see all the different forms that have maybe been assigned to him for today. So I can see a whole list of those forms if we want to. In this case, I just have one that I need to fill out for Blake Grocery. Now before I leave, we're going to do one more thing here. I'm going to pretend like we are going to go in a place without any internet connectivity whatsoever. So there's a couple of things I'm going to do first. Number one, I'm going to go over into this data management menu, which we explain also in a different video, so we'll point you to the full documentation on that. But the point is I'm going to click on Prep for Offline. Put simply, what this is going to do is it's going to bring down a lot of different records and objects from Salesforce. This is all configured by the administrator, but the point is that it makes it so that I can go offline and be able to reference a lot of the records in Salesforce without any internet connectivity whatsoever. It's one of our biggest value propositions as a forms vendor in the Salesforce ecosystem, is that we're one of the only people who can basically allow you to go out into the field and take your users offline and fill out these complicated forms without any internet connectivity whatsoever. And then only when we find internet connectivity later will it submit the form back. So I'm also going to go in offline mode right now. I could just as easily go into airplane mode and that would do the same thing for my device. But we'll switch into offline mode, and now I'm going to actually fill out this form. So I can click on this little card here, and immediately where I'm taken is to the form that we saw earlier in Salesforce. This is our store audit form template that we just built together. It's pre-populated with data from our account record in Salesforce. And even here, if I wanted to, and this might not make a ton of sense in real life and in a fully implemented solution, but I'm gonna just say that this was updated during demo. And this will show you that what it's like to actually update an account record in Salesforce with a Youreka form using these field links. Next, we'll go into this next section here called competitive intelligence. So we'll say, are there competitors present? If the answer is yes, how many competitors are there? And in this case, we'll say that it's 5 to 6. And then next, we'll say, are our prices lower than average, or higher than average? We'll say that they're higher than average. Next, I'll flip the page over here. Maybe we spoke with a store manager about some promotional opportunities. And so we'll indicate that their name was Matthew Jones. And then we'll go ahead and sign this store audit to say that we're done with our work today. Again, you'll probably have a lot more questions on your form template based on your specific requirements, but hopefully this kind of shows you what it looks like to fill out a form on the mobile app. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and click submit, and we'll see that because we're offline, we have one form that's waiting to sync back with Salesforce. So I could go through and continuously make new forms if I want to, or fill out all the forms that have been assigned to me, and then return back to the office at the end of the day, reestablish internet connectivity, and at that point I'll switch from offline mode into online mode, and right there you can see we're automatically going to sync all the data with Salesforce. So now you can see that Blake Grocery, which in that case you can already see the account name has been updated, and the status of that form is now submitted. We'll head back over into Salesforce here, and remember this page that we were just looking at that was entirely blank. Now we can refresh our page, and immediately what you'll notice is that all the responses that were completed just as we were out in the field are now visible right here on the page. We can see that that account name was updated from the mobile app, and we can also see all the data about our competitive intelligence, as well as the e-signature, any photos that we might have captured, anything like that is now available. The other thing is we can see that there's some insights associated with this particular form. Remember earlier we built a discovery, so we can say that because we had higher than average prices, because there were competitors present, and there were a lot of competitors present, we have a highly competitive situation here that needs to be addressed. So this form can be approved through Salesforce approval processes. It can be reported on with all the different answers for each individual question, and certainly the discoveries as well are their own records now inside of Salesforce that we can use to manage certain business processes off of. So we can see the scores have been totaled up, the lookups for that particular discovery have been populated, etc. So a lot is going on here as we're filling out these forms. With that said, I hope this has been helpful. This is what it looks like to create just a basic form template and get it out to your users so that they can fill it out while they're in the field with or without internet connectivity.